Testing 1, 2, 3.
Two Jasons are not here. Don't want your last meeting to go long. She called me.
Okay, we'll start this meeting of the Planning Commission, and, excuse me, and we will start that with Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with introductions of Planning Commission members. District 1, Jason Wienerman is not here. District 2.
Dave Bentrode here.
District 3 is Jason Crone, and he's absent today. District 4, Sean Blackburn is absent today. District 5.
Mike Pearl, present.
And I'm at large. My name is Rich Blankish. I am substituting for Jason Crone as chair tonight. At large, second seat.
Tara Ossendorf.
And ex officio.
Joe Persky, Stearns County Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay. First item on the list is a conditional use permit request submitted by Jamie Wheeling of Melrose on behalf of Glenn Hennenkamp of Melrose. And this is according to sections 4.8, 6.18, and 9.2.5 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request is to construct and operate a contractor's yard in the agricultural 80 zoning district. The property is part of the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter, lying east of County Road 168 in section 30 of Millwood Township. You're the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, usually have our applicants seated right there.
Have a seat right there if you'd like.
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay. The next thing is to see who visited the site. We'll just start with Mike on the end here.
Yes, I did. Dave Bentrode, yes.
I did myself.
Tara Ossendorf, no.
I was
And-
there too.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, staff report.
Okay, good evening, Planning Commission members. So we have a request here for a conditional use permit. What Mr. Wheeling is requesting is to operate a contractor's yard. He currently operates Wheels Water, which is a well drilling company in city limits of Melrose. And so they're looking to construct a building on this property, which is northeast of Melrose. It would be a cold storage facility. And long-term, they have plans to construct a second building out there. But initially, it will just be one building, as was shown on your plans. The entire Hennenkamp property is 131 acres. If the permit is approved, then the Wheelings would proceed to subdivide off a section of land, 14 acres there for the contractor's yard. It is in shoreland. There's an unnamed natural environment lake to the north. So it's just on the edge of the shoreline overlay district. But everything is plenty far from the lake and meets setbacks. There's wetlands on the property. You can see that large water body on the aerial photo is actually a wetland. That's not the lake. And there will not be wetland impact, and they do meet setbacks from the wetland. They're crossing that waterway there with their driveway that actually is not wetland. Was not delineated as wetland, it's just a waterway, so that's not even a wetland impact there. Since the project as a whole will end up over 1 acre of new impervious, they are working on a stormwater management plan. So they have an engineer drafting that. And you can see there that they're going to have a couple of basins to capture the stormwater. What we're proposing is the first building is to the east. And when they construct that, they'll construct that first basin. And then in the future, when they come in for their second building permit, then they'll end up constructing the second basin. So it'll be a phased situation. Sewage treatment is not a concern on this project because they don't intend on having any water supply to the building. If they do on the future building, then they'll have to, of course, put in a septic system for that. Parking is shown on the plans and is sufficient. Signage, at this point, they're just proposing signage for their delivery trucks. If they end up having a sign out by the road, then they just have to comply with the size limits. Outdoor storage. So they do plan on having some outdoor storage. You can see these photos show that it's, fairly open there. So with anything that's being stored outside, they will have to put in screening for that. So that can be either a fence or a berm or trees or a combination of that. And we don't have a specific plan for the screening yet, but we're proposing to require that when we issue the construction permit. They'll provide a detailed plan for the screening and then also a financial guarantee to make sure it gets implemented. Employees, they'll have 2 to 3 employees on site on a normal basis. That doesn't include the employees that come pick up trucks or equipment and leave the site. Licensed vehicles, at this point, they're proposing 10 commercial vehicles on site. The ordinance does limit it to 20, so they'll fall well under that. As far as the surrounding area, it is primarily an agricultural area with wetlands to the north. It's all surrounded by either Ag 80 or Ag 40 zoning. Contractors' yards are an allowed use in the Ag zone. Recommended action. So if the Planning Commission were to recommend approval, the conditions we would request would be requiring an approved stormwater management plan. And they would construct, like I said, the proposed building would implement that stormwater plan initially, and then with the second future building, that would stormwater portion would be implemented at that time. I did add some red text here, just clarifying the plans for the second phase. When they get to that, they'll need to submit us the detailed civil construction plan set complying with the county zoning ordinance. With each phase, we do ask for a financial guarantee of 125% of the expected cost to make sure it gets put in correctly. And then we return that money when they're done, and they provide us with an as-built drawing from the engineer saying, yep, it was put in correctly, and we'll give them the money back. Also a requirement that they do have to maintain those stormwater facilities in perpetuity, and then no additional impervious can be added that's not accounted for in the stormwater plan unless they amend the stormwater plan to accommodate it. Okay, moving on to accessibility. So the state accessibility code needs to be met. So we always work with our licensed building official on that for review to make sure the plans meet the accessibility code. Signage needs to meet the ordinance requirements if it's going to be signage that's visible from the road. We talked about screening needs to be implemented on the east, west, and south sides of the project, meeting the ordinance requirements and submitting the financial guarantee for that. Employees, no more than 4 employees can be engaged in the conduct of the contractor's yard at any one time on a regular basis. Again, that doesn't include those who are on site only to pick up and drop off equipment. Vehicles, there may be a maximum of 20 commercially licensed motor vehicles associated with the contractor's yard. That includes trucks and trailers. And then access. Access permit is required from the highway department. They're proposing to relocate an existing approach just a bit further to the north. Highway department has reviewed it and have said they're okay with it, but they need to formally ask for that permit. If this is recommended for approval, it'll go to the board on January 2nd. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, state your name and your address for the record.
Jamie Wheeling, 8 2nd Street, South Melrose,
Okay.
Minnesota.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by commission members?
It says you got 4 employees that may be engaged in work at the yard. Are you gonna have a porta potty out? I see that there's no septic system or water.
The 4 employees would come with the second building. That would be the office structure, the second phase.
Okay.
The first phase would just be cold storage. There'd really be no employees there on a daily basis.
Mr. Chair. Jennifer, I see that's class 5 as far as the parking lot and the driveway coming in?
Yep.
That's considered impervious?
Yes, it is,
Okay,
correct.
yeah, and then if they do put asphalt on that, when you make that change, does that require any special permitting then? Because it's already impervious?
That's correct. Yep,
Okay.
it's already impervious, it's already accounted for. We consider asphalt or class 5 the same level of impervious.
Okay. And then just, if you're using outdoor storage, just a recommendation, I would hope you'd fence it. I don't know if there are bad people around the area, but things disappear if you don't have it fenced in. I don't know, was that gonna be an issue, or?
We haven't put anything in writing yet, but my thoughts, I was gonna put a gate at that culvert.
Okay, yeah, that would certainly help,
Yeah.
yeah. I would be concerned if you had stuff outside, just, as far as not having employees there, and, yeah, that things could walk away, so, okay.
I guess my one question I had is where the drive crosses that waterway or ditch, is that designed by Soil and Water is to be appropriately so it can handle the water through that ditch, or
That was actually designed by his engineer.
by,
Yep.
by your engineer? Okay, all right, thanks. Anybody else have a question? Okay,
Just a little bit.
Okay, sure.
As far as pipe size on that culvert, I mean, is there a recommendation on that as far as?
We
what's
were matching the one going under the county road, which is a 4-foot,
Okay,
48 inch.
all right, sounds good.
okay, good. Is that it? Okay, then as we're ready to open the public hearing, is there anyone here that has a concern? If you do, please come up to the podium, say your name, give your address for the record, and then we'll go from there. Is there anyone here for the public hearing? Was there any written communication?
No, there was
Staff.
not.
Okay, we need a motion to close.
Excuse me, I'd move to close the public hearing. I'll second it.
Dave, motion to close, and then Mike, second. Any other further discussion amongst people here? None? Okay. Let's go through the finding of the facts. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, the proposal is consistent with the zoning ordinance, number 439, sections 4.8, 6.18, and 9.2.5. And a contractor's yard, as proposed, is an allowed use under this ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, The proposal conforms to the comp plan of the county under the rural business policies. Particularly number 3, encourage rural businesses seeking expansion in ag areas to locate near major transportation corridors, town site mixed use areas, or transitional areas, which you can identify through the map adjacent to a county road.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 here, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not? I would say it's compatible from the standpoint it's on a large tract of land and it's for cold storage, which is quiet and fits in with the rural area. And last, how has the applicant demonstrated the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, the applicant has provided an engineered design which shows that they meet all the setback requirements, and that they have also submitted a erosion control plan that meets both the stormwater management requirements for the county as well as the MPDS permits required for the new impervious.
Okay, thank you. And then the last item, are there any other issues pertinent to this matter?
I think, Mr. Chair, the environmental concerns, they've been able to show that they're far away, enough away from the natural resource lake to meet the setback requirements. So there won't be an effect.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay. Well, we're to the point where we vote to approve or not approve.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, those in favor to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes, and this will go to the county board on, what is it, January
2nd,
2nd?
January 2nd, yep.
Okay. All right. You're good to go. Good luck with that.
Thank
Yep.
you.
On to item 2. And we will have Tim Kramer, Brad Newgart, and Tom Kramer. Did I pronounce those names correctly? Thank you. Okay. Item 2 is to consider a rezoning request submitted by Tom Kramer Properties LLC of Cold Spring, Minnesota, according to section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to rezone approximately 12.5 acres from the agricultural 40-acre zoning district to the residential 10 zoning district. The property is part of the west 1/2 of the northeast 1/4 lying south of County Road 158 in section 21 of Wakefield Township. The property address is 16697 County Road 158, Cold Spring, Minnesota. Okay, members that went to see the site, we'll start with you, Mike.
Yes.
Yes.
I did also.
Yes.
And I was there as well.
Okay, thank you. Staff report.
So here we have a 43-acre property zoned agricultural 40, and it has a home on it. So they've used up their one building entitlement. And so the request is to rezone 12.5 acres to R10 in order to have another home on the property. The property does have access from County Road 158. It's very wooded. The area that they're wanting to rezone, which is on the north side of the property, is entirely wooded. It's got quite a slope it's high by the road, and then it's got quite a slope down to the east, south and east, about 70-foot drop in elevation. And actually then the land to the east is in the city of Cold Spring. There are no setback impacts with the proposed rezoning, and for that we really are talking about feedlot impacts with the new home. And so we don't have a concern with that. When we look at the surrounding area, obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of homes in the area, with the city of Cold Spring being directly east. So it's a residential area. Then as you go west, it gets more industrial with the businesses that are there. The zoning in this area is really a mixture of ag, T20, city of Cold Spring. So some industrial, some R1. It's really a mixture in the area here. We're not in shoreland. We're not in any overlay areas of concern. And again, if the rezoning's approved, they'll be allowed one new home on the property, essentially. So they would do a land split, get the 12 acres split off, and have the ability to build one new home. We did run the LISA score, and that stands for Land Evaluation and Site Assessment, and that measures the property's value in terms of agricultural use. And as you probably would have guessed, it came back extremely low. It's 26.8 out of 100. And when we say when you hit 65 or higher, it's considered pretty good for ag use, and this was 26, so very low. Wakefield Township did review the rezoning request and recommended approval. On the county's future land use plan from our comp plan, it's in a transition area with a natural resource overlay. And that's all I have for a report. This one also will go to the board on January 2nd.
Okay, thank you. Applicants, please state your name and your address for the record.
Tim Kramer, 21482 Fisher Court, Cold Spring, Minnesota.
Brad Newgart, 1409 3rd Street North, Cold Spring.
Thank you. Does the commissioners have any questions for staff?
I'm going to wait till after the public hearing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I have one question. Can you just, can staff explain the natural resource overlay?
Sure. Yeah, that's part of our comprehensive plan, and that layer is made up of a lot of different layers. So it could be that it was wetlands, heavily wooded lands. It could be areas of biological significance. This didn't come up as that. It could be the steep slopes. So there's a lot of different layers that went into that layer in our comp plan. It doesn't tell you exactly which layer flagged it to be in a natural resource overlay, but I would think it was due to the steep slope in the wooded area.
Thank you.
I just have a question in regards to if you could put up the map that shows the city portion with its lots and streets. And I see how the city has some streets that dead end right at I'm going to call it the township city line. Has there been any discussion with the city? Are they looking at a potential to extend streets through your property in the future? I mean, I'm just looking at how that is laid out. Is that any concern?
Yeah. So on the top one there, if that's 3rd Street South, as it heads west into the property, it very quickly hits some big elevations. So that we did lay it out a little bit to see what the potential development would be in there. And because it goes directly into the hill, it's pretty limited. The city does not have any current expansion plans. There's nothing on the books right now. We did intentionally leave the agriculture to the south open, but then also the other street, the lot purposely does not go down to that area. to leave that open for the future. So I think the impact is pretty minimal on that, on the further north street, because it basically dead ends right into the side of the hill.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's was gonna be, my question was gonna be later. So what you're saying is that it dead ends into the hill, but as far as any future utilities or changing of what you're doing there, your placement in your house, is there gonna be any future plans to extend utilities at all, perhaps that way by Cold Spring?
None that I'm aware of, no specific plans. I think the more natural way, in my opinion, would be the further south road coming straight through.
Yeah.
We know of no specific plans. I think that those streets went in, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's still some lots available in that area. So I don't know of any plans, especially for the further north street. There's no plans on the books for any of it. But the further north street, 3rd Street, I think it's very minimal.
With the elevation looked very prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 70 or 80 feet from the bottom to the top.
Okay. At this point, we will open up the public hearing. If you have any concerns, anybody in attendance, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and make your comment.
Greg Brown, that's Brown, is Braun, 201 17th Avenue South, Cold Spring.
Thank you.
And my question is, where are they planning to build the dwelling that they're proposing? I mean, it's 12 and a half acres, so is they're gonna access from 158, but I was wondering where it was.
Do you want me to answer that now?
Yes, go ahead and answer that.
So, right where it says 12.5 acres, you kind of see the flat stop just on top of that. That is the most likely area where we'll end up building that area right there. So we currently have like a 200 by 200 foot square box that was staked off by a surveyor. And that is the current plan, is to build it right in that flat area on top of the hill. And then the access would be from the County Road 158 side.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
Okay,
'Cause I live on up from 3rd Street there at the bottom of the hill. I was wondering if they were gonna come over the top of the hill,
oh, sure,
because the trees, I feel, are holding the dirt.
Yeah,
I don't want the dirt to come down.
okay.
That's what our concern was.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
So that's all
Any others?
that was the only thing I had was.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Staff, were there any written comments?
Nothing in writing.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Wait.
moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Tara. Okay, any further discussion?
I do have a question. And it piqued my curiosity with the question on the street stub there. Is for staff, once this is zoned, rezoned to R1, if the applicant decides not to build a house, but then decides to further subdivide that, what's the additional steps to do that?
Yeah, good question, Mr. Chair. Tara, the proposal is to go to R10, so they will only be allowed one home. But if they
R10.
wanted to do more than that, they'd have to come back before the Planning Commission with another request to go to either R5 or R1. So you would see it again. I guess another potential outcome would be to annex it to the city, and then you wouldn't see it anymore.
Okay, thank you. Any other further discussion? Okay, let's do the finding of the facts then. Okay, number one here is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, I would say that it is in accordance with Section 4.10 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List of applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, I believe that it does. It's a request that is not distracting from desirable ag land production. It was done in collaboration with the township, and it seems like a reasonable request given the area.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 here, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood?
Mr. Chair, the proposal is consistent with the existing neighborhood due to all the other residential lots.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Item 4, how has the applicant demonstrated the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied? I would say the applicant has demonstrated the standards with the surveyor drawings that were provided and the other information in the packet. Are there any other issues pertinent to this matter? I think township approval is one of them. Everything else? Okay. So we're to that point where we need a motion to approve.
Mr.
Or dis-
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the rezoning request.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tara. Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, third item is to consider rezoning request submitted by Jason Brown of Clearwater, Minnesota, according to section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to rezone approximately 10 acres from an Ag 40 zoning district to a residential 10 zoning district. The property is part of the west half of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter, lying north of County Road 46 in Section 9 of Linden Township. The property address is 1120 County Road 46, Clearwater, Minnesota. Started with Mike. Members, were you able to visit the site?
Yes.
Yes.
And I did also.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Staff report.
Okay, this is another request to go from the Ag 40 district to the residential 10 district. This property, on this one, they're asking for the entire parcel to be rezoned. It was previously used for a dog kennel operation. That closed a few years ago. And so now the desire is to convert that building into a home. Because it's A40 and it's not a parcel of record, it doesn't have a building credit. So That's why they're here requesting to go to R10. Then they would have a building credit and they could convert that into a home. So the access is existing from County Road 46. Of course, the property has the existing building on it. There's a large wetland on the property, and the property does kind of rise up as you go northeast. But again, the building is there. There's no setback impacts with the proposed rezoning. There's when we go look about a half a mile out from this property, is about 26 homes, one registered feedlot that's got over 10 animal units. It's really kind of a mixture of woodland in this area and rural residential. There's some ag land as well. The zoning is also a mixture. So we've got some R10 and R5 to the northeast and west, and then ag 40 to the south. The property is not in shoreline. It's not in any other areas of concern or overlays. So if the rezoning is approved, currently they cannot have a home there, and if it's approved, they could have one home. On the county's comprehensive plan future land use map, it is in a concentrated development area, which would be consistent with residential use. The LISA score on this one was 48, so we're still below that threshold of 65. Linden Township reviewed it and recommended approval. That's in your packet. And I don't have anything else on this one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, could I have the applicant state your name and address, please?
Jason Braun, 227 19th Avenue North, St. Cloud.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I got a couple questions.
Yes, staff, go ahead.
Jennifer, what I'm seeing here is, Mr. Brown, I see an existing, it was a dog kennel at one time, is that what I understand? It was a business?
Correct.
And there's, utilities are there, in other words, you got sewer, water, you got electric?
Correct,
We're just-
yeah.
Okay, and so the request is just changing this from what was it actually then zoned commercial, Jennifer?
It was actually, a dog kennel isn't allowed use in the A40 zone, so it was A40. It's currently A40.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It was taxed commercially, but the zoning was ag.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then what, Jason, was it part of the property then that, I see the home to the north there? Was it all in one piece then?
So the previous owners owned both parcels. They had them split. The one to the north was R10,
Yeah,
and then they had my parcel, Ag 40, essentially for the business,
okay.
because they couldn't have a dog boarding business in R10.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
But they could have it in the 40?
Correct.
40, okay.
Yep.
I'm just curious too, just where the way the blue line, what I'm looking at is the parcel that you're going to have rezoned. Appears to be a building and a fence behind that associated with that house. What is that? Was that an animal structure? Was it?
The circular area to the
Yeah.
north, yeah.
They had horses there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, now there's no horse arena, no building. It's just kind of growing in as weeds now.
Okay. And the other thing is, I'm just looking at that, and I'm just looking at, if you're going to split the two properties there, why you have the odd shape, the section to the north and a little bit to the east, why that goes into that area where the horses was, why didn't you just square it off? Is there any particular reason?
I had nothing to do with that. That was all the previous owners.
Oh.
They sold it as two separate parcels.
It was divided like that before?
Correct.
It was,
Oh.
and I could provide a little insight. They needed to have 10 acres with the kennel, so they had to go to the north and
Oh,
grab that much to
okay.
get 10 acres, yeah.
All right, that takes care of it. And then the last question is will that be a common driveway then between the coming off the county road, or are you going to have a separate driveway?
It would stay as it is now,
Okay,
and then there is an easement for the driveway.
there's an agreement?
Correct.
Okay, good enough.
Okay, with that, we're at the point for the public hearing. Is there anyone here in attendance that would like to speak up? Okay, was there any written communication to staff?
There was not.
There was none. We need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Tara. Second. Thank you, Dave. Okay. Ready? Any further discussion by commission? Okay, then let's move to the finding of the facts. Come on, fingers, work here. Okay, item number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, I believe the request is in compliance with Section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Number 2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, I would again say that it does. The land in question seems to have limited viability for ag use. It is an alternative form of housing that seems to be consistent with the area and other parcels and homesteads in the area. So I believe that it does.
Mr. Chair, Angie Berg. So I missed this on the last one, but we actually, if you could please cite a particular section of the comprehensive plan. I know, David, what you said is helpful as well, but a particular section would be great. You don't have to read it all. But.
Yeah, I would say the living goals. It was done in collaboration with the township. The township approval was involved. It does support housing, kind of alternative housing options that are part of the comprehensive plan. It's as far as rural residential, it doesn't distract from ag land. It's minimally viable for that, I would say. So I think it's in compliance with the comp plan.
Thank you. Okay. Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? And I think Dave described that pretty well previously. 4, how has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
The applicant has stated that they're going to be converting the property for residential, and they're, they have met all the requirements that are within the conditional use permit
Thank you, Tara.
application.
Okay. Number 5, other issues pertinent to the matter?
The property does have sewer, water, electrical, and will no doubt need some work, but it's doable.
Yes, and then township approval goes a
Yes.
long way on this too. Thank you. Okay, we are to a point where we need a motion one way or the other on this.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that this request application be approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tara. Okay, those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approve unanimously.
This will go to the board on January 2nd for final decision. Thank you.
With the project.
Yes?
I do have another item, and we're converting to a new agenda management system, and so it didn't get in your packet. But I do have copies available, so I think this would probably take 10 minutes. And so I'd like to talk about it. It's our accessory building changes, so I'm just going to hand those out.
Where am I missing that?
Just handed them
I
out.
thought I saw one before. Oh, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so what we're looking for tonight is to discuss the changes that are being proposed to the ordinance related to accessory structures. And the county board appointed a committee, a sub-working group of some township officials, 2 planning commission members, which consisted of Mike Prowl and Jason Wienerman, 2 county commissioners, Joe Persky and Steve Notch. The township officials were Dan Stamas from Farming and Diane Knoll from Albany Township. And I think that was it. And so we met a couple of times, once this summer and then once this fall. The goal of the work group was really to identify if there was any concerns in our accessory building standards for both riparian and non-riparian. And at the end of the day, the group came up with, it's really working all right. But there is some recommendations for change that we would be proposing. And I'm gonna jump you to page 4 of 9 on the handout. At the bottom, number 8, the work group recommendation was basically to empower townships or to inform them again and again and again that they can be more restrictive. And then not everything that the county has to be more restrictive and then apply it to 30-some townships, but rather just inform and empower townships that if something isn't working in their area, that they can do it. We can work with them to change their rules. And that really came out from the townships and the planning commission members. I'll let Mike and Commissioner Persky speak for themselves, but we did talk a little bit about tweaking the accessory structures for non-riparian lots. So just to kind of bring you back to shoreland is anything within 1,000 feet, 300 feet of a river. And then riparian is basically, think of it as anything that touches a lake or a river, a lot that touches, and then a lot that doesn't touch would be non-riparian. And so the department has seen an influx of requests over the last few years for property owners that are non-riparian wanting larger accessory structures. And people want more things, they want more buildings, and so we as staff at Environmental Services did a lot of review of, what do other counties do, what's the purpose and intent of the original rules. And so we really circled back to the purpose and intent of accessory building area being limited based on your lot size in shoreland was mainly aesthetics. When you're on the lake, the public is supposed to be viewing natural shorelines, not large accessory structures. 99% of the time, you're not seeing a non-riparian lot because they're not on the lake. The other goal would be impervious lot coverage, which has to be met anyway. So the idea is no matter if it's a building with a roof or it's concrete, it's still impervious. Like the curve number doesn't change. So we, Jennifer and myself and all of the staff have been having these conversations with property owners for years, and we really thought that it was incumbent upon the department to bring this forward as this is what the public wants. And given the fact that we're still meeting the goals on the riparian side, the recommendation from the work group, the recommendation from the department would be to consider what you see on page 5 of 9. It's kind of small. But basically, it's doing what we're saying is nothing would change for riparian. That would stay the same, and that's been working, I think, working well for the reasons that we've seen. Non-riparian would change, so basically they could have 5% of their lot could be in an accessory building area. Again, lot coverage still has to be maintained at 25%. So that's really what we're in front of the Planning Commission with tonight. Per the ordinance, the Planning Commission needs to make a recommendation to the commissioners. We do have we're hoping the board will have a public hearing on this on January 16th. I've already noticed townships, sent all of this to townships as well. And so that's kind of where we're at. So I'm going to be quiet and see if you have any questions, because I know I just dumped a lot on you.
Maybe for the sake of discussion, I'd make, it's coming from a solid work group. I would move to approve this amendment to the ordinance 439.
I would second that motion for purposes of discussion.
I've got a issue of discussion, and Angie, I don't know how strong it came out in our task force when we were talking about it. I guess my concern is accessory building with or without an existing structure. So that if you've got a property, what can you put on it if you do not have a homestead, if you don't have a home on it, okay? Opposed to those that have a home on it, okay? What would actually be allowed? And my concern is when you put in a well and you put in plumbing, it no longer becomes just an accessory structure, that it becomes something different.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, we talked for hours
I know.
about that over the last few months. And again, I'm representing what I heard from the committee.
Correct.
So they believed, after many hours of discussing that very concern, is that people are going to do what people are going to do. Now, the alternative to what we're proposing and what would somewhat get at Commissioner Persky's concern would be someone could build an accessory structure and not allow them to have water and sewer in it. The group really didn't feel like they wanted to go that way. So, some people do want to have, we call it a convenience toilet, right? It's a shower, a toilet in your shed, and that's where you maybe your kids hang out, or you have a workshop. So that would be eliminated under that proposal. So I think that there was concern with that, restricting that. And again, empowering townships, like if it's a problem in Crow Lake Township, then hey, Crow Lake, you go for it, right? Like you be more restrictive, and you're the eyes and ears because you're the ones that live there. So you're going to see things happening more than we ever would. It's interesting because, shouses have become a thing. So just because someone's living in a building that looks like a shed doesn't mean they can't. It likely could be permitted as a residential dwelling unit. We don't have building code in this county, or we don't enforce it, so people could build it out of popsicle sticks and live in it. It doesn't matter what it looks like, it's how it's used. And once you're inside the building, as we all know, it's very hard to regulate. And Joe's going to hear my same analogy, and I'll say it at the board, so you'll hear it 3 times. But the idea is just because I might speed on my way home doesn't mean I can't drive a car, right? So are you not going to give someone something just because they might violate? That was kind of what the group came up with. So
When I look at what the group's recommendation was, I agree with it because I think it doesn't overstep an issue that isn't an issue. When I look at what we have on page 4 of 9, number 7, how many complaints has have you dealt with regarding this? 2 complaints in 5 years, or 0.6% of total number of cases. And to me, that says it's not an actual issue that somebody's really raising. And personally, coming from somebody who has half-grown children and no idea of how they're ever going to figure out how to buy property in the future, I don't want to limit their ability to potentially live somewhere. So I agree with what the work group has come up with here.
I totally agree. So the one thing I've noticed, I live in Sauk Center Township, and they're really good at being more restrictive, and to the point of, to me, absurdity. But and just is it okay to talk about previous requests that we've looked at?
For sure.
And I don't recall the applicant, but it had to do with, what you're talking about here, just maybe cut to the chase, is accessory buildings on somebody's property, a residential type property, or, because there was that request where they, down by one of the lakes, where they wanted to build outbuildings on a 5-acre parcel, just the outbuilding.
Right.
We're not talking about that situation with this, are we?
That would continue to allow that situation.
Right.
So if you remember, the planning commission and the board denied that, and now subsequently there was a 1-lot plat got recorded because they can do 1 a year. But this wouldn't prevent that from coming in again.
Okay.
Again, what we kept hearing from the work group is if, let's say in that situation, Collegeville didn't want to see that sort of development, then they ought to be more restrictive. But
Got it.
we have
Okay.
some
That
townships
makes
who
sense.
don't want us, because we have to be the standard. They can't be less restrictive than us, and so if we're too restrictive, then the townships felt we were taking away from their opportunities. So, but I'm glad you asked the question, because that's the big elephant in the room. And the interesting part about it is this committee came about because of that plat, but the non-riparian changes, our staff have been working on that for well over a year, year and a half, probably. So the timing was just really bad. So that we'd really like to see continue to go through at this point.
Yeah, the other thing, I like the changes. I'm glad that they didn't put the plumbing restrictions in there because they're not in there, right? I'm glad they didn't put their plumbing restrictions in there because I do believe in landowner rights and property rights. And once you build something, I don't understand why the county would have any say if you decide to put a sink in there or an accessory toilet. I mean, as long as it meets the county code, there's not any land use problems with it. There's not any issues with groundwater or any other things. I don't know why it's anybody's business, to be completely honest.
Question from me would be, on every one of these sites that a potential storage building / living quarters, whatever you want to call it, would you have the same policy that we do with people that want to build a home and designate the areas for percolation areas for septic systems? Because where you have one that you're going to start your home with, but you have to have a second site.
Oh, sure.
We'd have to do the same thing with these,
That would
correct?
have to be the
If you're going to
same-
allow
Mhm.
sanitary sewer
Right.
systems in, we'd have to do something like
And
that.
that was, and I think in the plot that we were just talking about, they were proposing no. Did they do septic?
They did
sites?
not identify septic sites because it wasn't intended to be used that way, so they did not.
But you got to be ready for them.
Well, the way the ordinance works, so the subdivision ordinance says is that anyone can subdivide their land and say that they're not gonna have, I don't know, if we say water supply or sewer and water, and then they're not required to show that, right?
So you can just sneak it in there. A
No.
septic system?
No.
Well, then,
Okay, so tell
what
me,
comes about then?
so, Rich, I think what I heard you say is you wanna make sure that if somebody does a plat with these accessory structures on it, that they ensure that there's sewer, enough drain field space. Correct?
Well, it'd be a concern of mine because maybe you're gonna be dealing with some, marginal land that cannot be used for septic systems.
So the ordinance gives the developer the option to say, I'm not gonna use I don't want sewer and water, therefore, I'm not going to provide septic system sites. That's been an option for a long time.
So then when an individual wants to put one in, even though it's not in the plat or
Then they have to
whatever,
provide the information.
they have to provide the information and you're gonna have that requirement. That's all I'm asking is,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
so there's
They
enough
won't sneak
surface
it in
area
or-
to deal with
Mhm.
the on-site sewage treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say it's more off. I mean, you might have obviously it's like cold storage building or something, right? You know, and
Yeah.
you're splitting it off. Like, I don't know what Wheels and Water is gonna do. They're probably not gonna do the septics right away. Maybe they will. They wouldn't have to. You know, they would just have to do them at the point that they wanted to.
When they expand to the front.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think our process works really good for that. If the answer is they didn't anticipate it and then they want it and it can't happen because the soils are awful, well, then they don't get a septic system.
Yeah.
You know, so.
The bottom line is this proposed change gives some process for addressing the previous request that we had for a storage unit on 5-acre parcels.
And more so explaining to the townships that the ball is more in their court.
Yeah, it's good.
And Angie, is there a restriction on how small the parcels can be? So again, my concern is, especially in shoreland area, that you take the ag land and you put it into 1-acre parcels. And what you're gonna see is you're gonna see a whole bunch of accessory buildings develop in second layer of accessory buildings around a recreational area.
So you'd look at that chart that's on page 4 of 9,
Yep.
and that would tell you the lot size based on,
So 1-acre parcels would actually be able to have a 1,500 square foot building, right?
and the minimum lot size still has to be met. So on a recreational development lake, like Big Fish, the chain of lakes, that the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet, which is a little less than an acre. So you don't get a smaller lot just because you say you're building a shed. Still the minimum lot size, and then you look at the chart, and then you still have to meet lot coverage, which is 25%.
And you can see that, that's my concern, is what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a whole different animal. Just like we didn't see, Airbnbs and vacation home rentals, come as they, and proliferate like they did. Well, now you're going to see these accessory sheds in recreational areas. Is that what we want?
Well, I think that was the issue with that previous request. And as I recall, we were being asked to approve something that had never been done before. And as I understand it now, this proposed change gives some guidance to that process. And we're encouraging the townships to be more restrictive if they want or need to be, given their area. And that seems, to your point, it sounds like boat storage, for example, is a premium, that people are looking for it, they need it, they want it, And I guess it would be up to, you know, put more of the burden on the townships to approve whether they want those in their area or not.
Yeah, and Dave, I would have no problem if a person puts up a pole shed and puts their boat in there. I have no problem. What I have a problem with is when they bring electric, water, and now they have a holding tank, and now it's a living structure.
Yeah, and I think that is, as I recall, one of the things that we were concerned about as well. It wouldn't be too hard to install those kind of,
And what stops a person from
You
bringing
know,
their
right,
RV
so-
out there?
it's,
That's my concern.
Yep.
And the other thing is about putting it onto the townships. When you put it onto the townships, you put it on the backs of two people, if you got 3 supervisors. And so there's 2 people that are making that decision.
That's the problem I see with some of the townships, and you've got some people that are entrenched. They've been in a township, leadership role for 20, 30 years, and they think it's their own little kingdom. And
Absolutely.
I don't like VRBO, I don't like Schouses, so then they outlaw them in a township. Well, I don't think that serves the community either.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I mean, like it or not, the state law says that that's how it works.
Right, but being
So-
more restrictive.
Correct.
Okay, and so the point being is if the county had the ordinance, they wouldn't have the choice.
Well, and you could look at it the way that you're putting that on 2 people, but you're also taking it away from several hundred township officials. Take your 35 townships times 2, you know, and your other officials. You're taking that right away from some, and so you could look at it both ways. And all due respect, Mr. Chair, this intention is for the planning commission. You're going to get your shot at the board.
Right.
So I think at some point I'd like to know, I have a general feeling from Tara and Dave and Mike, and, you know, I don't need a whole lot more information, but I do need something to say that to the board.
I think for me, for purposes of the discussion, I respect the work group process. They made a recommendation. They did all of the work. I have done none of the work. So I'm still for the
guess
recommendation of the work
yeah,
group.
I'd call for the question. I got a motion in a second. I guess unless there's some other procedure I'm not knowing, but
And don't get me wrong, as far as the development, if you went ahead and you rezoned it, put the lots in, and you put in electric, well, and a septic, that would be fine. But that's not what these are. That's my problem with it.
So what you're looking for is approval from this commission that you can take it forward to the county board?
Approval or not approval. We need a recommendation. The rule requires recommendation.
Motion in the second is over the original
Well,
motion.
well,
I didn't call for a
I moved
motion.
to approve for discussion purposes, but I called for the question. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the work group
We're gonna order,
proposal, and I will.
we are out of order. The chair calls for the motion.
Oh, I'm just.
I
I'm not-
mean, I know what you're saying, but,
I'm just,
and I just called for a motion.
okay. I'll make the
So-
motion. Okay. I apologize for being out of order.
Is there a second? Motion was made.
Was the motion to approve the work group
Yes,
recommendation?
that is my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll vote on that. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you. That's all I have, other than tonight is Mike Prowl's last night. He's
Oh.
met three-year terms, and so he has to go away, and,
Have to go away silently into the night.
yeah, that's it.
I got one item
Great,
I'd
you
like
have
to discuss after we award you your trophy or plaque. Whatever.
I do think we have some refreshments for when the meeting is adjourned. So in terms of other discussion, go ahead, and then we have to do minutes yet.
Okay. I have talked this over with a couple of county board commissioners, and I suggested in writing to them that, they look at increasing the per diem for this committee. I've been on it for 6 years, and that per diem has not increased. And if you've, followed inflation, we've taken a cut there. And I've never served on anything where we've been frozen for that length of time. And I think, the county should look at this commission and all other commissions on a per diem increase. And I just want to open that for discussion. Mike?
I haven't been on the committee long enough to have an opinion. Sorry.
I would agree. I'm a little,
I
the history,
I think it's a good point, because if you're dedicated to your job and you're doing the site visits, you're not getting an hourly rate to do your site visits. You're just getting mileage, so you're actually donating time there, so that everybody looks at that per diem. Oh, you get $100 for the meeting, and to me, no, that's not $100 for the meeting. It's for the time.
Everything.
And for everything, doing the site visit and reading out the material. There's more entail to it than just going to a 2 or 3 hour meeting, right?
yeah, you could, well,
I
spend
would
2 or
like,
3 hours on a road.
yes,
It's a
easily.
big county.
Yep.
But I worked that out though. I made it a family thing. My boy and I, we make the circle on Saturdays, and and then we usually end up in St. Cloud, and then.
Oh.
And now that I'm not on the board anymore, now I'm gonna try to find out if that can be in, my boy has a FAA license for drone, and we're gonna, so we might start a business of
Oh,
aerial photography for
nice.
realtors and stuff.
So getting back to my discussion item, I would like to make a formal request that the board discuss it at their next meeting.
Okay, I can bring that up,
Would you, Joe?
yeah,
I don't think we're getting out of line here.
okay, well, I could put that on issues by commissioner. Okay, that
Go
would
for it.
work,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Anything else? Need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, we need minutes yet.
Excuse me.
Yep, minutes, please.
Minutes. Buried in
Do we
here.
have 2 sets of minutes here?
Yeah. That's,
Is there a reason why we have 2 sets of minutes?
The one wasn't ready.
What do we have in front
this
of
is
you?
the new, format.
I'm just looking at one of the 2 that I'm looking at. On one of the motions, I see that I'm actually voting on items, and my name shouldn't be on there. This one,
Deb's right there.
this one, Deb.
Okay, so
Okay,
the new system,
yeah,
probably put that in as a default, so we'll correct it.
yeah, okay. Okay, so yeah, if it's the system that's doing that,
Oh.
yeah, take me out.
It's brand new.
All right, okay,
That is funny.
Getting used to it.
all right.
Good catch.
I didn't catch that.
But there is just minutes from the November 16th meeting that you need to consider.
Anything else that we need corrected? Approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Tara. Second? Anyone?
Last second? I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Seconded by Dave. Okay. Now, motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, David. Second? I'll second it. Okay, we're done.
Rich, bang the gavel. Just take for the feel of it. There we go.
We're all holding our breath.
Oh.